A chance discovery of a flower near a mountain spring in Wales would begin a journey for one of the most imaginative thinkers of our time, Edward Bach, a passionate and devoted physician who turned his back on orthodox medicine and began researching the healing power that nature provides for treating disease. Dr. Bach was a respected bacteriologist, pathologist, and London physician in the early years of the 20th century. According to his theories, emotions are linked to physical disorders. His flower remedies interact with whatever negative emotions a person is experiencing at that moment to bring those emotions back to the positive. Like many pioneers whose discoveries advanced the fields of science, the life of Dr. Bach was not without controversy. And like other innovators who make unique discoveries, some thought of him as an eccentric. But his intuition about the power of nature eventually culminated in the discovery of 38 flower remedies that would change the way people approached the art of healing. Edward Bach was born on the 24th of September 1886 in the village of Moseley, located just on the outskirts of the city of Birmingham, England. Throughout his childhood, Bach often visited the countryside. He was an intuitive boy, very sensitive to his surroundings, and enjoyed walking among the trees, birds, and wild flowers. But in stark contrast to the natural beauty of the open fields was the city of Birmingham. This manufacturing city is considered the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. Upon leaving school, Bach went to work at his father's brass foundry. He had suppressed his childhood dreams of becoming a doctor, as he didn't feel he could ask his parents to stand the expense of his medical training. But with its constant noise and seemingly claustrophobic conditions, the work environment at the foundry did not suit the young Bach. He did, however, find a very different inspiration from this industrial setting. Edward Bach was a keen observer of emotions and saw how illness took its toll on the workers. Fear of illness was as great a problem as illness itself, because a sick man could not work nor afford the expense of large medical bills, and the cures offered did little more than mask the symptoms. Finally, Bach told his father of his desire to become a doctor. With his family's blessing, he left the foundry to pursue his passion for alleviating human suffering and went to Birmingham University to study medicine. For 6 years, Edward Bach voraciously consumed his education, first at the Red Brick University of Birmingham and later at University College Hospital in London, where he qualified as a physician in 1912 and joined the Royal College of Surgeons. A year later, he obtained the further degrees of Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, and in 1914 added a diploma in Public Health from Cambridge. During his tenure at University College Hospital, he researched vaccine therapy in the bacteriological department. Bach discovered that certain intestinal bacteria were closely connected with chronic disease and its cure. He developed vaccines from these bacteria that were found to purify the intestinal tract. While encouraged by the results of many vaccines, he was distressed over the use of injection, given the pain caused by use of the syringe needle. By the time the First World War broke out, Bach was already highly regarded as a physician. The hospitals in England overflowed with soldiers returning from the front line. Some men had horrific injuries, while others were suffering from the effects of gas poisoning, amputations, and shell shock, what we today call post-traumatic stress. Although Bach's ill health restricted his ability for military service, he was placed in charge of 400 wartime hospital beds. While spending every spare moment working at his research into bowel disease. During his time spent with the injured soldiers, he began noticing that some, with the same conditions as others, fared much better in the healing process, though he wasn't certain as to why. Unfortunately, in 1917, his efforts came to an abrupt halt as he collapsed at work with a massive hemorrhage and was rushed into hospital. Doctors operated on him, removing a cancer already in an advanced stage. He was given only 3 months to live. But for the tenacious Dr. Bach, there was too much work left to be done, as he felt he had only scratched the surface with his research. Though still very weak and just able to walk, he got back to his laboratory with an intense desire to do all he could in the short amount of time he had. With new purpose, he became stronger, defying all odds and amazing his colleagues with his renewed health. To say Bach was a workaholic is somewhat of an understatement. His window at the hospital was known as the light that never goes out because of the long hours he kept. The following year, Dr. Bach was given unofficial permission to inoculate troops in England, with the result that thousands of lives were saved. This only brought more patients to his door. He ran his private practice where the elite of the profession were located, on Harley Street in London. Because of his immunology research, he was looked upon as a genius with an even bigger future in front of him. And yet, though a successful physician in the middle of the city, Bach's yearning to live closer to nature was one that never left him. He was known to walk to a small park in the city and just sit and look and listen to nature in the midst of the bustling city. Ironically, that same love also caused him great pain, as a city park was no match for the pastoral countryside he had enjoyed as a child. In March 1919, Edward Bach was appointed pathologist and bacteriologist at the London Homeopathic Hospital. Exposed for the first time to the principles of homeopathy, Bach set out to delve deeper into the subject. Of particular interest to him was the Organon, the seminal text on the subject written by the father of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann. Though Hahnemann's discoveries had been made over a century earlier, Bach was fascinated that Hahnemann had, too, seen a connection between intestinal toxemia and chronic disease. He decided to prepare the bacteria using homeopathic methods to see if those preparations would work as well as the vaccines. This was a great success, and the new remedies became known as the 7 Bach nosodes. Hahnemann's theory was to treat the whole person rather than the symptoms of disease alone, and he stressed the importance of the mental and emotional state of the person being treated. Dr. Bach felt a kinship to Hahnemann, as he had always been interested in the individual needs of his patients as people, believing that orthodox medicine concentrated too hard on diseases and not enough on the whole person. He revelled in the idea that Hahnemann's ideas might lead him to the safer and more natural way of treating the cause of disease that he had dreamed of as a child. In his consulting rooms, he began trying to apply Hahnemann's insights by categorizing his patients and searching for links between their personalities and the bacterial nosodes that they needed. He found he could often predict the nosodes he would need to use on a patient just by looking at the personality type. In 1922, Dr. Bach decided to give up his post at the London Homeopathic Hospital in order to concentrate on his research, although he continued to receive and treat patients at his London consulting rooms. He opened a large laboratory in Park Crescent, and it was there that Edward Bach met radiographer Nora Weeks. She too found the prospect of healing by nature fascinating, and she was a firm believer in the directions his research was taking. Later she would become his assistant, although by all accounts the relationship between the two remained purely platonic.